When Sean Diddy Combs was sentenced to 50 months in federal prison, the reactions were swift and intense. Shock, confusion, disbelief. These were the emotions that echoed across the entertainment world. The story made headlines worldwide, leaving many wondering how a mogul of his stature could find himself facing such a fate. A man who had once been revered for his music empire, fashion ventures, and entrepreneurial brilliance now stood before a judge, hearing the harsh reality of a prison sentence. But for Michael Francesi, a former capo in the Colombo crime family who spent years in federal prison, the true challenge for Diddy wasn't the initial sentencing or the media buzz. The real problem for Diddy is yet to come, Francesi states. People think the sentence is the hard part, but once you're behind those bars, that's where everything changes. The sentence is just the beginning of a whole different journey. Francesi, who's lived through the harshest of environments, knows what it means to be behind bars, surrounded by individuals with nothing left to lose. Normally, when you're in a federal facility, nobody's looking to shank you. It's not a part of the process unless you become a target for some reason, he explains. But when you get into the higher security institutions, where people are serving decades of hard time and have no way of benefiting from you, that's when you start to face serious problems. They won't hesitate to make your time even harder. Given Diddy's public persona and his influence, Francesi believes that if Diddy were to be placed in a higher security institution, his situation could become precarious. He's done so much in the public eye, and that fame might actually be his biggest disadvantage in a prison like that. He could quickly become a target for those looking to use his name for their advantage, Francesi continues. That's why being in a camp, which is often nicknamed Club Fed, is the best-case scenario. In those places, life is more relaxed. But the issue for Diddy is his profile. He could face serious security concerns in a facility like that. Despite the grim headlines and media frenzy, Diddy's legal team managed to secure a relatively lenient sentence. When the judge handed down a sentence of just over 4 years, many inside the system believed it could have been much worse. Francesi thinks the judge took many factors into account, including Diddy's years of public scrutiny, the intense media attention surrounding his case, and the emotional testimonies provided by his family. In the end, Diddy got lucky. He walked away with just a little over 4 years, and with credit for the time he already served. That's not bad. He could have easily faced 10 or 11 years, but the judge clearly considered everything. However, Diddy's legal team did a masterful job of managing the volatile situation. He should be disappointed, but he shouldn't be devastated. Considering all the drama and circumstances, a 4-year sentence is a win for him. He could have gotten more. He's going to serve less than many people would have thought. Francesi also offers insight into the emotional journey that Diddy will go through as he processes the reality of his sentence. You have to understand, prison is like nothing else. When you get that call, when you walk through those gates, everything changes. Some people cry. Some people dwell on their fate. Others bury their head in the pillow, but no matter what, the reality is the same. You're in for a hard road. The real struggle for Diddy begins when he is placed in the system. You know, the system will assign you to a place based on your profile, the nature of your crime, and security risks, says Francesi. Judges can recommend a facility, but ultimately the Bureau of Prisons makes the final decision. They decide where you go, and because of Diddy's fame and the public attention surrounding his case, it's highly unlikely that he'll be sent to a minimum security camp. Those places are for low-risk offenders, and they're called Club Fed for a reason. They are more relaxed, with open grounds and limited barriers. But someone like Diddy, who's highly visible, is a security concern, so a medium-security prison is more likely. Diddy will spend his first few weeks in federal jail, awaiting his assignment to a new facility. During those first few weeks, he's going to get a taste of what life behind bars is like, Francesi explains. Federal jails are much harsher than what he'll face in prison. He's going to have to get used to a different routine, a different environment. But once they transfer him to a designated prison, it will be a little better. He'll have more freedom, more movement. He'll be able to interact with others on the yard. It's still prison, but at least there's more room to breathe. Diddy will also have to think about his long-term strategy. Francesi points out that in prison, time isn't just about survival, it's also about improvement. The Bureau of Prisons has a number of programs designed to help inmates reduce their sentences, including a drug program that could cut up to 18 months off their time, Francesi explains. If Diddy qualifies for that program, it could make a big difference. But I don't know if he'll be allowed to participate. It depends on his behavior and whether the authorities think he's a good candidate for rehabilitation. Diddy will also likely ask his legal team to help secure a facility closer to his home and family, which would allow him to maintain connections and ease the process of his incarceration. He's going to want to be as close to his family as possible, especially considering the circumstances surrounding this case. He's going to want to maintain as much normalcy as possible, even in this situation, Francesi adds. But the reality is that it's not always up to him. He can ask the judge for recommendations, but the Bureau of Prisons can and often does ignore those recommendations. Francesi also shares his personal experience with the system. "I've been in minimum security camps, and let me tell you, there are no fences. It's just open space, and everyone is supposed to have trust," Francesi recalls. "I was moved to a camp by accident once, and they realized their mistake and sent me back to a higher security facility. They tell you when you get there, if you want to leave, you can leave. But if we catch you, we'll add years to your sentence." Though the relaxed nature of minimum security camps may sound tempting, Francesi insists that the environment can still be dangerous. "Even in these camps, people try to escape all the time. While I was there for just 2 months, someone ran away every month." But Diddy won't face the same dangers as others. He has a lot of friends in prison, people who want to do business deals, people who want to use his connections to make money, Francesi says. In conclusion, Diddy's story isn't over yet. He has a chance to make something of his time in prison, to reflect on his mistakes and change his life. But he also faces a very real risk of going down a darker path, Francesi warns. The way he handles himself behind those bars will determine what happens when he's finally released. Whether he finds redemption or sinks further into the chaos depends on how he chooses to confront the reality of his situation. When Sean Diddy Combs was sentenced to 50 months in federal prison, the reactions were immediate and overwhelming. News outlets were filled with shock, confusion, and disbelief as people tried to process how a man who had dominated the entertainment industry, built an empire, and inspired millions could end up behind bars. Fans and industry insiders alike were stunned. How could someone like Diddy, a mogul known for his music career, fashion line, and business ventures, find himself in this situation? For Michael Francesi, a former capo in the Colombo crime family who spent years behind bars, the real trouble for Diddy is yet to come. "Normally, nobody's looking to shank you," Francesi begins, speaking from his own experience in the harshest corners of the federal prison system. "But when you get into the higher institutions, where people are serving long sentences and there's no way you can benefit them, that's when the real problems start. You're not just a regular inmate, you're a target." Francesi, who spent years in federal facilities, explains how Diddy's life behind bars is likely to be drastically different from the life he's used to. Maybe if he's placed in a camp, a low-security facility, it might be different. But based on his lifestyle, his fame, and what he's accomplished, he's more likely to end up in a medium-security facility. For someone like Diddy, who has lived a life of excess and luxury, this change could be nothing short of shocking. "Prison is not just about doing time," Francesi adds. "It's about survival. You have to prove yourself over and over again in there. The way you carry yourself, the way you navigate through the system, it all matters." For Diddy, who's been used to making the rules, the world of prison will force him to adapt in ways he's never had to before. Despite the intense media coverage and public scrutiny surrounding Diddy's case, Francesi points out that Diddy's legal team did a remarkable job of securing a sentence that could have been much harsher. The judge, in Francesi's view, took everything into account: the years of public controversy, the emotional testimony from Diddy's family, and the highly publicized nature of the trial. The sentence could have easily been much worse, Francesi reflects. He was facing up to 10 or 11 years, and he walked away with just over 4 years. That's a win, in my opinion. However, Francesi emphasizes that Diddy's journey in prison will be far from easy. He's disappointed, obviously, Francesi says. But at the same time, I think he's going to realize that a 4-year sentence, given everything that's happened, isn't terrible. He could have gotten far more. But the real test is how he handles what comes next, the months and years that lie ahead in prison. The real battle begins once Diddy is behind bars. The hardest part for someone like Diddy isn't just the time. It's the emotional toll of being isolated from everything familiar. The stripped-down lifestyle, the complete lack of control, these are things that break people, Francesi notes. Diddy's entire life has been about being in control, being at the top, having everything his way. But once he's inside, none of that matters. Prison is a place where every inmate faces their own personal struggle. It's about how you adjust, Francesi continues. When you're in prison, it's not just about surviving the environment. It's about surviving yourself. You're left alone with your thoughts, your guilt, your anger. And for someone like Diddy, who's spent his life surrounded by people telling him what he wants to hear, it's going to be a massive adjustment. The mental strain, Francesi explains, is one of the most challenging aspects of prison life. Diddy's legal team, aware of the intense public interest in his case, has made it clear that they're hoping to place him in a safer and more rehabilitative environment, such as Fort Dix, a low-security federal prison in New Jersey. The goal is to ensure that Diddy can be close to his family, while also being able to address any underlying issues such as drug abuse. The goal here is to put Diddy in a place where he can be close to his family and have access to programs that can help him rebuild, Francesi says. Fort Dix offers a range of programs, including the RDAP, Residential Drug Abuse Program, that could reduce his sentence by as much as a year. If Diddy qualifies, that could be a game changer. However, Francesi is quick to point out that Fort Dix is not without its challenges. While it might seem like the ideal place, Fort Dix has its own problems, he notes. It's had issues with gang activity, contraband, and staffing shortages. A place like that can be unpredictable. And for someone like Diddy, who's already high profile, that can create real risks. For Diddy, who's used to the limelight, being placed in a medium security prison could be an even bigger challenge. Diddy's fame is both an asset and a liability, Francesi explains. In prison, people want something from you. They want to make deals, they want money, they want influence. Diddy will have more people wanting things from him than he'll have enemies, but it's still a dangerous situation. He's going to have to figure out how to manage those relationships. In prison, Diddy will be forced to adjust to a new reality. It's going to be tough for him, Francesi says. But there's an opportunity here. Diddy could take this time to improve himself, work on his issues, and come out of this experience better. There are programs that can help him do that, but it all depends on how he handles himself. Diddy's legal team, working to keep him close to his family and in a safer environment, hopes that the proximity to home will provide him with the support system needed to make it through. They're asking the judge to recommend that Diddy be placed at Fort Dix, Francesi explains. The idea is that being close to family and being in a low-security facility will help him rehabilitate. It's not just about serving time, it's about getting the help he needs to change. But not everyone agrees with this approach. Gene Deal, Diddy's former bodyguard, believes that Diddy is beyond rehabilitation, Francesi points out. He has no sympathy for him. He feels that Diddy got what he deserved. Gene's been through a lot with Diddy and has seen the darker side of the man. He says, "I've seen him hurt people, and now it's his turn to face the consequences." Deal's feelings are raw and honest, shaped by his personal experiences with Diddy. "I have no remorse for him," Deal says. "I don't care how bad he feels. I don't care if he's crying. Karma is a real thing, and he's finally getting what he deserves." For Deal, Diddy's fall is long overdue, and he feels no sympathy for someone who once betrayed him. Despite Francesi's concerns about Diddy's placement and future, the truth remains. Diddy's time behind bars will be a test of his character. The real question is, what will happen when he's out? Francesi musas. Will he have changed? Or will he come back into the same world of excess and ego that led him here in the first place? For Diddy, this period in prison could serve as a profound moment of reflection. The absence of fame, the stripped-down lifestyle, and the time spent away from his empire will force him to confront the choices he's made and the people he's hurt. Prison is a place where you face yourself, Francesi concludes. It's a place where you can either change or be destroyed by your own ego. Diddy's future depends on which path he chooses. Was a major issue. In that video, they were showing all the good stuff. Hugging people, attending charity events, making appearances, Francesi explains. But the real issue is that during all of that, he was committing crimes. That's the biggest problem. You can't show a video like that in front of a judge and expect it to help your case. It just doesn't work that way. As the court drama unfolded, it became clear that Diddy's defense team, though skilled, failed to fully address the emotional weight of the case. They made this all about Diddy. They didn't make it about the victims. The defense kept pushing the narrative that Cassie and the others weren't victims, that they consented. But that's tone deaf, says Francesi. You can't ignore the emotional aspect of these cases. The judge needed to hear that Diddy understood the impact of his actions. Instead, the defense focused too much on defending him and not enough on addressing the real harm that had been done. This, Francesi believes, was a fatal flaw. The defense missed an opportunity to show true remorse. If they had focused on the victims, if they had shown that Diddy understood the pain he caused, it might have worked in his favor. But the defense team's handling of this was a mistake. The public reaction to the trial was equally mixed. Many were shocked by the verdict, feeling that Diddy's public persona should have been taken into account. Others, like Charlemagne, pointed out that Diddy's actions off the stage were impossible to ignore. At some point, it became clear that this wasn't just about his career, Charlemagne stated. Diddy had made choices that directly affected people, and we couldn't ignore that. The public saw him as a larger-than-life figure, but behind the scenes, he was involved in a lot of shady dealings. That was always going to catch up to him. Despite this, the court proceedings didn't go the way Diddy's defense team had hoped. They tried to push this idea of Diddy being misunderstood, but it didn't land, Francesi says. The video, the testimony from his family, it all seemed staged. It was too polished. People weren't buying it. In one particularly emotional moment during the hearing, Diddy himself broke down as a video showcasing his life was played for the court. He was crying, apologizing to Cassie, talking about how much he regretted his actions, Francesi recounts. But let's be real, how much of that was sincere? After all, he'd been caught in multiple lies over the years. When you lie to people for so long, it's hard for anyone to believe you, even if you're shedding tears in front of a judge. Diddy's apology, though heartfelt to some, wasn't enough to sway everyone. For people like Gene Deal, his former bodyguard, there's no sympathy left for the man he once looked up to. I'm not shedding a tear for him, Deal says bluntly. I don't care how much he cries or what kind of apology he gives. He's been running games on people for years, and now it's catching up to him. He deserves everything he's getting, and I'm glad to see him brought down. Deal's resentment runs deep, stemming from a history of betrayal. I would have given my life for him, Deal reflects bitterly. And to know he was trying to take me out, to have me eliminated, it's hard to have any sympathy for him. I've seen him do some terrible things, and now he's finally paying for it. For many, Diddy's tears were nothing more than a performance. Karma is a powerful thing, Deal adds. It catches up with everyone. If you wrong enough people, it's only a matter of time before it comes back on you. And now Diddy's facing the consequences of his actions. Despite the harshness of his former bodyguard's words, there's some truth to the sentiment. Diddy's made a lot of enemies over the years, and a lot of them still haven't forgiven him for the things he did, Francesi notes. That's going to be a problem when he enters the prison system. Prison isn't just about doing time. It's about navigating a world where everyone has their own agenda. Diddy's fame might not be the shield he thinks it is. It could make him even more of a target. The situation only grows more complicated when considering Diddy's past associations. The fans of Tupac and Biggie aren't just going to let Diddy walk free without some consequences, says Francesi. A lot of them believe that he played a part in both of their deaths, and they're not going to forget that. In some places, Diddy's presence could cause serious issues for him. People don't forget in prison, and they hold on to grudges for a long time. For Diddy, the future is uncertain. If he ends up in a place like Fort Dix, he might be able to lay low and work on getting out early through rehabilitation programs like RDAP, Francesi says. But there's always the danger that he'll cross the wrong person. And when you're a high-profile inmate like him, that's never far from reality. Christopher Zukas, a prison consultant and author of the Federal Prison Handbook, adds that Fort Dix may not be the safe haven it appears to be. The facility looks calm on the outside, but it's had problems with gang activity, contraband, and staff shortages, Zukas warns. For someone like Diddy, that's a real issue. His reputation will make him a target, and he'll have to be extra careful who he associates with. But the real danger may not come from inmates, but from the prison system itself. If Diddy's lawyers push too hard for special treatment, the guards and staff will notice. And if they're caught giving him preferential treatment, it could ruin his chances of staying out of trouble, Zukas adds. In the world of federal prison, everyone is watching. Every move you make is scrutinized. That's the reality Diddy will face when he enters the system. As Diddy prepares to enter a new chapter of his life, the future remains uncertain. Will he come out a better person, or will the prison system break him down further? It's all up to him now, Francesi concludes. He has a chance to redeem himself, but it's going to be a tough road. He'll face a lot of challenges, and the people who once supported him will either help him or watch him fail. The ball is in his court. There was one theme that stood out above all others during the trial: Diddy's repeated apologies. He keeps saying he's sorry, Francesi notes. He says it after every new incident, every new mistake, every new video that comes out showing his wrongdoings. And you know what? That's fine. People can apologize, but at some point, actions have to back up those words. The problem is, every time Diddy apologizes, the cycle starts again. It's like he's caught in this loop of regret, followed by more violence, more incidents. Francesi reflects on the timeline of Diddy's actions and how it looked to the public. Remember the video that surfaced of him allegedly beating up Cassie? First, the allegations came out and he denied them completely. He said it was all lies. Then, a video dropped that proved exactly who the real liar was. He had no choice but to apologize. He posted a heartfelt message on Instagram where he promised he was going to change, seek therapy, and become a better person. But not even a few months later, he was caught on video doing the same thing to another victim, Jane. Francesi shakes his head. This pattern, it's hard to ignore. He's saying all the right things, but his actions don't match up. How can anyone believe him? The disturbing chain of events left the courtroom with a difficult question. Can Diddy really change? The judge has to consider that when he hands down a sentence, Francesi continues. Diddy says he's sorry, but then he goes right back to his old ways. After the Cassie video, he was crying, claiming that he was horrified by his actions, that he would seek help. But look what happened afterward. Another victim. Another incident. The public can't just ignore that. So how can the judge take him seriously? However, Francesi also acknowledges that Diddy's defense team did a decent job of showing some humanity in the case. I'll give credit where it's due. Diddy talked about his past, the trauma he's experienced. His children spoke in court, and that had an effect. It humanized him. You can see that he's not a monster. He's a person who's made mistakes. I think that did have an impact on the judge. But despite that, the judge still handed down a sentence longer than what Diddy's defense had hoped for, though shorter than what the prosecutors had asked for. In the end, the sentence is what it is. Prosecutors wanted him to serve 11 years, but the judge settled on something less, Francesi observes. Now, Diddy's future depends on where he goes from here. The Bureau of Prisons will decide where he serves his time, and if his lawyers are successful, he could end up at Fort Dix, a low-security facility in New Jersey. But even a low-security prison comes with its own challenges. The thing about Fort Dix is, it's not a country club, Francesi warns. Yeah, it's more relaxed than a high-security facility, but it's still a federal prison. Diddy will be surrounded by thousands of other men, all of them with their own struggles. It's not about fame and fortune anymore. It's about routine. It's about survival. Diddy, who's used to controlling every room he walks into, will have to surrender that control completely. That's the hardest thing to accept for someone like him, Francesi says. For decades, he's been able to dictate the terms of every situation. But in prison, he's just another guy trying to make it through the day. He won't have the power anymore. He's going to have to adjust, or he's going to break down. When Diddy's fate was sealed and the sentence was handed down, there was little left to do except wait. He now faces a time of deep introspection, far from the lights of fame and the comforts of the high life. He'll go from the red carpets to chow halls, from boardrooms to concrete walls, Francesi adds. It's going to be a total transformation. No more meetings with billionaires, no more rubbing elbows with celebrities. It's all gone. It's going to be early mornings, routine check-ins, and introspection. Prison forces you to think about everything. But the real question is what happens when Diddy gets out? Will he come out of prison a changed man? Or will the world see the same old Diddy? When he gets out, what happens then? Francesi asks, posing the real challenge. Will he go after the victims? Will he target people who blew the whistle on him like Gene Deal? If he's learned nothing in prison, that's the path he'll take. But if he can somehow change, if he's truly able to reflect on his actions, maybe he can find a way to do better. Gene Deal, Diddy's former bodyguard, has been outspoken about his feelings. I've been seeing a lot of stuff online where people are saying Diddy's gonna come after those who testified against him, Francesi continues. But I'm not worried about that. Gene Deal isn't worried about it either. He says, I'm not going to lose sleep over someone who's already tried to get rid of me. Listen, Deal said. I don't care what people say online. Diddy's actions speak for themselves. I'm not going to be worried about him. He's the one who needs to worry about the people who are coming for him. People are tired of his games. He's always had money, always had power, but now, it's all gone. In prison, none of that matters. For Diddy, who spent decades controlling his own destiny and manipulating every situation to his advantage, the world he's about to enter is something entirely new. In prison, you don't get to control anything. You don't get to decide who your cellmate is or when you can leave. The power dynamic shifts completely, Francesi says. For a man like Diddy, that loss of control will be the hardest pill to swallow. This is going to be a serious test of who he really is. Diddy will likely face countless struggles in the coming years, but Francesi believes the real test will be what happens after Diddy's release. Prison might change him, but it might not, Francesi concludes. The true question will be whether Diddy can learn from all of this or if he'll keep repeating the same mistakes. It's all about how he comes out on the other side. For Diddy, the next chapter of his life is unwritten. What happens inside the walls of the prison will shape his future, but it's what happens when he's free that will truly define him.